All right, welcome on into the Wolverine recruiting show. Clayton Sayfie here with EJ Holland. We're going to break down the latest in Michigan football recruiting. It's been a busy week. It's been a busy month, really. EJ around Ann Arbor for Michigan, hosting a ton of visitors, official visitors, unofficial visitors. They've also held 2 prospect camps. So there's been kids all around that building, recruits, taking pictures. You see it all over Twitter and all that. Also, Michigan staff on the road. They've hit several satellite camps so far this month. We've been at most of them, I guess you could say. Jim Harbaugh personally involved there. He went to a couple satellite camps this week earlier. EJ, you were at the one in Nashville, got to see him and quite a bit of the Michigan staff there at kind of a mega camp there at Tennessee State. I'm just going to kind of throw it to you because I feel like there was so much activity, so much going on. Michigan was all over the place at that camp, and you were able to get a ton of scoop from there. So I'll throw it to you. What were some of your primary takeaways? Michigan dealt a couple offers out and all that. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the satellite camp was super, super busy. There were a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, and way more newsy than I thought it was. I thought it was just going to be, Miles Pollard shows up, kind of a meet and greet, and then you leave kind of like they did in Chicago with Tyler Morris. But no, there were a lot of prospects there. There was a lot of movement with the staff. So you had Ron Bellamy, Steve Clinkscale, Sharon Moore, Josh Gaddis, all there. And then Jim Harbaugh showed up towards the end of the camp. He was actually flying in from Utah, where he did another satellite camp out west. But at the Nashville camp, I think some key takeaways were getting to spend more FaceTime or getting more FaceTime in with Miles Pollard and his father. Obviously, Miles made an official visit to Michigan over the weekend, but getting back to seeing him, to have that extra interaction with him, I think is always a plus. So both Bellamy and Clinkscale spent a lot of time around Miles and around his father. And like I said, Harbaugh didn't show up until the end of the camp, and Miles stuck around. Even though he had just seen Harbaugh, I thought it was really positive that he stuck around and waited there for like 3 hours for Harbaugh to show up just so he could say, hello for 30 seconds. And then, Miles went back home. But yeah, I feel like Michigan's doing a great job with Pollard, and them going out to Nashville only helps their chances of closing with him when he makes his decision in July. And, we'll talk a little more about Miles in the OV recap section. But some other key guys that were there that didn't work out: Dylan Bell, who you see in the picture right here, 3-star athlete out of Texas that's really blowing up on the recruiting trail. This week alone, he's notched offers from Texas A&M, Georgia, Auburn. So, his recruitment is definitely heating up when Michigan thought it had the lead. But the good thing is Michigan's been a constant there. He loves Mike Hart, who's recruiting him as a running back. They are giving him the flexibility to play wide receiver as well. So he spent some time with Josh Gaddis, who's kind of blocked there by Jim Harbaugh. But he kind of waited around too, got a chance to see Harbaugh and mingle with him for a while. And actually, out of all the recruits there, I think that Bell was the one that spent the most time with Harbaugh. So they are really making him a priority in this class just as an overall offensive weapon. He's coming in for an official visit this weekend as well. So they'll have a chance to really move the needle. Another recruit coming in for an OV this weekend is Diarco Perkins McAllister. He's a guy that, we hadn't really heard a lot about, hadn't talked a lot about him, but he scheduled an official visit to Michigan. He got some FaceTime with the coaching staff. He's been really impressed with his conversations with them, especially Ron Bellamy and Clinkscale. And so I think Michigan has a chance to maybe make a move this weekend. They've recruited Nashville really well. So he's one to watch as more of a safety nickel type guy, especially with, Dylan Tatum still not making a decision. Dylan will be on campus for an unofficial visit, but Michigan's expanding the safety board a little bit, and Diarco is a name to know for sure. And then you had the actual campers that were there. So, one of the more intriguing recruits was Aaron Alexander out of Belleville. He's a kid that could commit to Michigan. I mean, as soon as this week, before the weekend's over, he camped with Michigan on Sunday. He earned an offer. His only other FBS offer is from Marshall. I actually waited to put in a future cast because I was trying to confirm whether or not Michigan would take him right away, and they 100% want him. They love him. They think that he's a guy that can really turn into something special. He missed most of last season with a broken hand, so a lot of schools haven't had a chance to see him. But he's a big, intriguing linebacker that has experience playing running back, that runs I believe an 11.2 in the 100 meter, which is really fast for a guy his size. So yeah, Michigan hasn't had a commitment in a while. He's definitely a candidate to end that drought. Samaj Morgan was another camper, a 2023 wide receiver out of West Bloomfield that Michigan recently offered. He's an interesting, little slot receiver that can also play on the outside. You can do a lot with him, use him in the kick return, punt return game. He's kind of seeing his recruitment rise as well. He just got an offer from Ole Miss not too long ago, but obviously with the West Bloomfield connection and him seeing Ron Bellamy again was definitely a plus. And outside of that, I mean, I think the staff just did a really good job of, getting out there again. They've been working hard, to get out to all these camps at all these different cities. And Nashville is becoming more of an important city for Michigan. They're definitely recruiting harder in the Music City. They landed Junior Colson out of Nashville last cycle, and his mom actually stopped by the camp to meet with some of the new staff members as well, which was pretty cool.
I love that picture. You posted that. That's on EJ's Twitter account. Mrs. Colson, got to meet her when they were up in Ann Arbor last year, and also Junior Colson, quite a character as well. But, yeah, great family there, and, kind of cool that they wanted to come out and see the Michigan staff out in Nashville. I also want to go on record about Samaj Morgan and say that I'm on the Samaj Morgan train, seeing some of his clips. He's good. He's athletic. He's small, but he can play. She really showed out. I think he was the wide receiver MVP, if I'm not mistaken, at the Michigan Prospect Camp last Sunday. So he is showing out in front of the Michigan staff. Definitely deserved that offer coming out of the camp. Posted a couple clips of him, making some one-handed catches at the camp. Pretty impressive. One of them was completely unnecessary, but I love the flashiness out of him. So I'm excited to potentially see him in the future at West Bloomfield. Felt like I was at all their games last year anyway, so might as well see more of him this fall as well. So, yeah, certainly lots to take away from that Nashville satellite camp. We will be hitting some more here in the coming weeks as Michigan just continues to hit the satellite camps. I don't follow it as close. Obviously, I follow Michigan, cover Michigan, pretty closely. But it seems like Michigan's been more active on the satellite camp circuit, really, than a lot of other big-time programs around the country. Could be wrong there, but just an observation. The Michigan staff has been known for their satellite camp stops in the past, obviously. Controversial and not. So, yeah, definitely some good takeaways out of this camp here. Let's talk about the guy that you mentioned, Miles Pollard, who was on campus last weekend for his official visit. Got to hang out with Will Johnson, 5-star Michigan commit, cornerback as well. But Miles, a 4-star corner out of the Nashville area there. Teammates of the aforementioned Junior Colson, also wins. If I had to rank it, this is the coolest picture I think of the weekend as well for the YouTube viewers to see Miles Pollard there sitting on these steps outside of the big house, the brick wall there outside of the big house. Let's talk official visits. Miles Pollard, I guess we can start with him, but then obviously Michigan had a slew of important targets on campus last weekend, in addition to the guys that are already here this weekend.
Yeah, so Miles was, one of the more important targets on campus. He's long been their number one cornerback target. He's a priority. He's a guy that Steve Clinkscale recruited for multiple years at Kentucky. I think Michigan entered the official visit weekend with a lead, and I think they still have the lead, coming out of the visit. He still has OVs left with Oklahoma and Auburn. He's making an unofficial visit to Alabama next week. Right after he made an official to Michigan, he went out to Florida for an unofficial visit. So he has some big time suitors. But at the end of the day, I think that comfort factor with him just being super familiar with Michigan, having Junior Colson there, having good friend Will Johnson committed there, knowing Klink for as long as he's known him. I think all bodes well for Michigan. I had a chance to catch up with his father, who gave some really good quotes. You can find that story over at the Wolverine. But Miles is, a pretty quiet kid. Even though I've known him for more than a year, his interviews are always a little more short answered. But coming out of the visit, Miles just talked and talked and talked. And I think one of the things that stands out is the fact that he called me from Gainesville to talk about Michigan. So, he was still really on that official visit high. And I don't think it's wearing off, though. I don't think it's just an OV high. I think it's literally, he loves the program so much. So I still feel confident, about my pick for Michigan, or my future cast pick for Michigan and Miles Pollard. Some other important guys that were there: Nate Johnson. Nate's been really quiet coming out of the official visit. I haven't really seen him do many interviews or anything. He's actually preparing for the state track meet this weekend, so I think he's kind of trying to stay out of the limelight.
Like a true quarterback, just preparing for that track meet.
No, I mean, this is a guy that, obviously runs a 10.5, 100 meter, and he's one of the fastest players in the country, regardless of position. Michigan loves him. He had a chance to spend a lot of time with Jim Harbaugh and Matt Weiss. Matt Weiss got on the board with him. And something that really impressed Nate, or that I was told really impressed Nate, was the fact that Weiss kind of went through the progression. He showed him the high school film. He showed him the film of what Michigan did last year. And then he showed him some film of Lamar Jackson. So he kind of made that transition from, this is what you're doing in high school, this is how you're going to do it at Michigan, and this is how you're going to do it in the pros. Weiss obviously worked with Lamar Jackson during his time with the Baltimore Ravens, and that's been a big, selling point for Nate Johnson. So, I think Michigan is still right up there with Nate. Utah is another school that he's very high on. UCLA is coming at him a little harder, and he could even see his stock rise even more after he competes in the Elite 11 finals in a couple of weeks in Los Angeles. So with Nate, I think, again, Michigan's in a great spot. We're just kind of in a little bit of a wait and see mode with his stock potentially going up. Jeremy Patton made his way out from Texas and was probably my favorite interview coming out of the weekend. He called the host hotel creepy and said Jim Harbaugh was weird. But overall, he really liked the visit. He said that, Ann Arbor eventually grew on him, and that Jim Harbaugh came over and whispered in his ear creepily and said, "I'll grow on you." And apparently he did. He had nothing but great things to say about Harbaugh and about Michigan. A lot of great things to say about George Hilo and Mike McDonald. And I think Michigan has risen up to that number 2 spot. I don't know if they've, taken over the number 1 spot, which is currently held by Texas. Obviously, Texas is, the big school in state down there. They've been recruiting Patton for a while. He's a top target on their board. But he's very open to leaving home, and Michigan's a program he really likes. He's a high academic kid, so he really liked the education side of the visit as well. And Michigan has made him more and more of a priority as of late. So he's definitely one to watch. And it looks like he wants to delay his decision a little bit. A lot of people were expecting him to commit to Texas this summer, but he told me he really wouldn't like to make a decision until the fall so he can get back to Michigan for a game. So I think even though, Michigan doesn't lead right now, I think it was definitely some positive movement on the Jeremy Patton front. Oscar Delp came in for a midweek visit, just left, the day the Michigan staff went out to Nashville for the satellite camp. And, I think they made a good impression on him. He's been their number 1 tight end target, Rivals 250 prospect. With Oscar Delp, I think right now, Georgia leads, and he's from the Peach State, so it's going to be tough to open. But he has a really good relationship with the Michigan staff, really likes the academic side of things. and Michigan was his first offer. So that's definitely something that's playing in the Wolverines' favor. So those were just, some of the few official visitors that were on campus over the weekend.
Yeah, lots of activity. And then, as you mentioned, Oscar Delp comes in early in the week, and he's there. And then the Michigan staff leaves, around the same time, or he came in at the time they were leaving, you said?
Yeah, so
And then they got back,
Delp.
yeah.
Well, no, Delp was there. Delp left the same day
The,
that the Michigan staff
okay.
departed for the Nashville camp, and there were also two. We didn't even mention it at the beginning of the show, but there were also two satellite camps in California that had some other Michigan assistants out there.
Correct, yes. So, yeah, lots of activity. Coaches coming, going. One coach, Michigan coach that we talked to off the record last week at one of the camps, said that it's just craziness around the building, but it's organized chaos, and they're having fun, and they think that recruits are having fun, but they're also hitting camps, coming back, and all that. You see, I think Josh Gaddis posted a photo on his Instagram story of the PJ, the private jet that the Michigan staff was on, coming back from Nashville the other day. So these guys are just living the road life right now. EJ, I'm not sure we quite have the budget for you to be on a private jet when you're hitting some of these stops, but it is what it is. I guess we'll grind it out for a little while till we get there. But so that is the craziness surrounding the Michigan official visits. The last thing, let's finish up talking about Will Johnson, 5-star Michigan commit that we mentioned earlier, has been on campus a couple times already. He's on campus again this weekend here for his official visit. But he visited USC last week. Was obviously a positive sign that he got back to Ann Arbor to hang out with Miles Pollard, as we talked about earlier. But paramount for Michigan to keep Will Johnson in the fold. He's a legacy recruit. He's an in-state recruit. He's a hell of a player, which is obviously important as well. And teams are going to continue to come after him. They're going to continue to recruit him. It's Michigan's job to, I think, win on the field, show him that, this program is headed back in the right direction. And, because it feels like he wants to be a part of that. He just wants to keep his options open maybe a little bit longer than he originally thought, just based on some of the other good options he has out there.
Yeah, I think it's important to provide an update on Will coming out of those two visits. So starting off with his USC visit, he made a midweek trip out to LA and spent a lot of time, just around the city, around the campus, and around Dante Williams, who's his lead recruiter and considered one of the best recruiters out west. A lot of people said, well, Will's just going to spend time with Damani Jackson. Damani only spent half a day with him on his 2.5-day trip. So Will was there, on his own. He really does like USC. He really likes the staff, as hard as it is for some people, to accept. But at the same time, this is a kid that's grown up around the Michigan program. His dad obviously played at Michigan. He's supposed to be the leader of the class. He's, he is supposed to embody Michigan. And so, I think barring a terrible season, Will is going to stick with Michigan. I think the unofficial went really well. Will told me he really enjoyed getting to spend time with a lot of the players and get a vibe from, the player standpoint. And obviously, he got to hang out with Miles Pollard. I think his relationship with Steve Klingscale is improving. Not that it's ever been bad, but I think that they really have a tight knit bond as well. Or they're getting to that point where they have a really tight knit bond. Ron Bellamy has a really strong relationship with him, and then he's coming back in for an official visit this coming weekend. So Michigan will have a chance to answer any questions he has, his mom has, his dad has for the staff, and whether it's from an academic standpoint, a stability standpoint, whatever the case may be, they'll have all their questions answered on the official visit, and I think they'll have a chance to kind of quiet things down with Will, heading into the dead period and eventually into the season, which will ultimately decide how this recruiting cycle ends up going.
Yeah, so still a long ways to go, but Michigan obviously pushing the right buttons and has to, continue to do that this weekend, especially as you mentioned on the academic side of things. It sounds like his mom wants to hear just a little bit more about that. And then it was kind of funny, even in one of your articles, not to give the whole thing away, but Will just saying that, his mom loves USC or whatever. Like, he's like, yeah, my dad obviously wants me to go to Michigan. And I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, you know, based on kind of following this recruitment as well. And, it seems like Deion Johnson has certainly been open to, allowing Will and telling him to be open in his recruitment and see all his options and all that. But at the end of the day, Deion Johnson is a former Michigan player and would love to see his son, who's committed to Michigan, probably stay at Michigan. But at the same time, they're very, very, very calculated. You can tell in this process, and it's going to continue to play itself out. But I don't think it's time for anyone to, panic or anything like that. It's going to be, like we said, a process here as time goes on. And Michigan has another chance this weekend as we speak to continue to wow Will Johnson and continue to make him feel like a priority, because he is in this class as well. Anything else this week in recruiting that we should hit on?
I think that pretty much wraps it up for the YouTube viewers. If you want more insider information, you can go over to thewolverine.com. Use promo code Blue60, get 60 days free.
Yep, we'll see everyone over there.